Historically, conflict between Palestinians and Israelis stemmed from the conflicting claims of two groups belonging to the same territory. In light of post-World War II tensions in British-controlled Palestine, the newborn United Nations passed Resolution 181 in 1947, a partition plan to divide the territory between Palestinian Arabs and Jewish immigrants. Through this, Palestinians resisted the partition plan, which assigned the smaller Jewish population a larger territory. This partition further led to an event known as Nakba, or the catastrophe, which focused on the disposition of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. During this time, Jewish terror groups intensified their attacks on Palestinian civilians and began driving them from their homes and villages. Furthermore, in 1967, Palestinians were once again forced to flee war as victorious Israeli forces occupied portions of Palestinian territory that were captured by Jordanian and Egyptian forces in the 1948 war. Contemporarily, there are now at least 6 million refugees, the oldest of whom have been waiting for more than 50 years to return home. The forced expulsion of Palestinians from their homeland in 1948 resulted from the birth of the State of Israel and is now a core injury at the heart of the dispute between Palestinians and Israelis. The tragic history of the Palestinian refugees persisted through the latter half of the 20th century and is far from being resolved than at the start of the new century. As a result, acknowledgement and just resolution of these injuries will be at the heart of any lasting peace between Palestinians and Israelis. There is an issue of Palestinian refugees that are not allowed to return to their homes. Over time, the Israeli government has forced many out of their homes and many yet to return. Like Filipinos, Palestinians leave their country to find jobs and work in other countries. However, unlike the Filipinos, they also leave because they're in the middle of a political conflict. Like Filipinos, Palestinians have felt a strong sense of spatial and physical displacements since they have literally been moved or forced out of their own country. However, even through this displacement, Palestinians have managed to recreate what they can now call their home. Palestinians have been able to recreate their home away from home by taking parts of various organizations and ensuring that their voices are heard. For example, this can include sharing their experiences with others, recreating popular festivals, and being involved in the community. This allows them to feel a sense of belonging and deal with the physical and emotional displacement they have experienced along the way.
افتح لمرآتك عيون يبصر بها من جابعك اتحدى الكون وتمرد وتعلم تبقى جريء مشوار الألف ميل خطوة تبدأ بطريق اتحدى الكون وتمرد وتعلم تبقى جريء مشوار الألف ميل خطوة تبدأ بطريق.
I never thought the day where my dad would tell us that we are leaving Palestine would come. My dad, who was a well-established architect in Jerusalem, started getting frustrated because his Palestinian construction workers were forbidden from moving and traveling out of their cities to go to work. It was because the Palestinian-Israeli conflict was getting worse. He was getting fed up with the inhumane ways the Palestinians were being treated with. And just like that, my parents made the decision of moving to the United States of America. The challenges we faced as a family were many. My dad's 25 years of work experience and his architecture degree were insignificant as he came to the United States and had to start over. This meant that once relocated, it would take years for him to get to the professional level he was once at. Other than his job and starting over, the move was easier on my dad because his 3 brothers had been living here for years before we followed. The transition was a lot harder on my mom. She left her own mother, 3 siblings, and their children behind. Until today, I noticed that she is unhappy at times because of the move. To my younger siblings, it was a lot easier assimilating to a new culture and language, and the hardest part was changing schools and recreating friendships, which only lasted for about a year. I adjusted fairly quickly as well. However, I continue to miss my friends and family, therefore at times I do feel a sense of emotional displacement. The journey was not only filled with challenges, it had its perks as well. Moving from a country where Palestinians were persecuted on a daily basis to the freest country of all was the most important to our family. My future and my siblings' future was another reason my parents sacrificed their jobs and much more. It was hard for all of us to identify with a culture that is 100% different than the Middle Eastern one. We were also around people who spoke American English the entire time, so losing our Middle Eastern accent was not a challenge. For my parents, it was harder. One can still tell they are not from this country by listening to them speak. Their English is excellent, but they will never be able to lose the Middle Eastern accent. I would go to Mass by myself in the beginning because my family did not feel like they belonged in an American church. Until we found a church that hosts Arabic Mass, we were not going to church as a family, which had always been a tradition. Luckily, we found a church that has Arabic Mass and that hosts over 30 Middle Eastern families every Sunday. My parents could not be any happier. Going to church every Sunday and being around people their age who speak the language is really healthy, and especially for my mom. She has built friendships that remind her a lot of her friends from home, the ones she would call every day to invite for some Turkish coffee. This has allowed our family to feel a sense of belonging in this country, as we all begin to recreate what we felt was home. Overall, the transition for the second generation is a lot easier than it will ever be on my parents. A move such as this one is never easy on a family. It takes patience, emotional and psychological support, along with a willingness to adapt and recreate what you once called home.